Good evening. This is our regularly scheduled first meeting of August 13th at 6 p.m. We're going to call this meeting to order, but we're going to begin with an invocation. Father Balta I'm so sorry, Father. Thank you. Penderetti from Our Lady of Sorrows Catholic Church, if you'll make your way forward. And as he's coming forward, please stand. Following the prayer, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Jesus, we thank you that as you promised us, that where 2 or 3 are gathered, you are there in the midst, and we experience your presence here. We welcome you amongst us today and to celebrate the gift of life that you have lavished upon each of us. We ask that you open our ears so that we may hear your voice. Heavenly Father, we come to you today as members of the Homewood Council, asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that might affect and improve the life standards of the people in Homewood, and continue to remind us that all that we do here today and all that we accomplish is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, and for the service of humanity. Lord, grant us your Spirit so that as we meet to discuss and serve our community, be with all of us here present and all those who are involved in these matters to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognize our responsibility to the past and the future of the rights of needy people and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today, that may we act wisely and well. Jesus, open our hearts and minds so that we may receive your eternal wisdom, and open our hearts so that we may receive your wonderful love and mercy in all our activities. Bless our country, bless our state, and bless our Homewood people, and especially all these council members and all the participants, to grow in unity and to opt for the poor and needy. Heavenly Father, we ask all these in the glorious, most holy name of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Father, thank you so much, sir. We appreciate it. All right. Mr. Burgett, roll call, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Gwaltney? Here. Mr. Thames? Here. Mr. Higginbotham? Here. Mr. Wolverton? Here. Mr. McCluskey? Here. Mr. Jones? Mrs. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Wyatt? Here. Mrs. Andrus?
Here.
Mr. Wright?
Here.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Here. So we have a quorum of 10. The next item of business is the reading of the minutes from July 23rd, 2018. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for dispensing of reading those minutes and approving such.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Higginbotham, second from Ms. Andrus. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is unanimous. Next item is board vacancies. We have one BZA for Ward 3. Mr. McCluskey, do we have a decision on that? I don't think he did. Did he?
He did have interviews. I know he held the interviews, but I didn't get anything.
Okay, well, why don't we do this? Let's delay that until the next meeting, and because we certainly want to be respectful of all the folks that we interviewed. That would be a good thing. Thank you. That's the only one that I'm aware of. Is there any other?
We still have a library board, Ward 5.
Tell me about it.
I have sent it out to my distribution list and posted it on Facebook. So I don't know. We need to keep working on that.
No takers yet.
Yeah. We have not heard from anyone on, not received anything on that.
That kind of hurts.
I know. We need our wonderful library board. They put on a fabulous event Saturday, so we really need to bring someone on board.
May I charge the two of y'all to work more diligently to find applicants for that?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay. All right. Next item is amendments to the agenda. We've got two items to add. 180818, which is a request for consideration to contract for citywide traffic study requested by Andy Gwaltney, Britt Thames. This will be assigned to finance, and these, again, are both committee referral items. 190818, request for quarterly update from the Homewood Chamber of Commerce, requested by Meredith Drennan, Alex White, and again, this will be in our finance department, and I believe that's all we've got. So the chair would welcome a motion and a second for approval of the amended agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion from Mr. Higginbotham, second from Mr. White. Thank you very much. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that is unanimous. Okay. Let's move on to the consent agenda. Again, we would welcome a motion for approval of the consent agenda and a second.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Gwaltney, second from Mr. Thames. Any discussion? If there is none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And that is unanimous. Okay. Old business agenda, we're going to start with 140618, public hearing set for tonight for consideration to adopt changes to the zoning ordinance. This is from the Homewood Planning Commission and Greg Cobb with BEZ, and we will open this public hearing now. And Mr. Cobb, would you like to fill us in? And Mr. Cook, both. Good.
Yes, sir. We had several changes to the zoning I'd like to make that I think will help us all work a little better. These have been through the Planning Commission, and there's 7 of them tonight. Mr. Kendrick has already written an ordinance that has them well laid out. There's also more to follow that have we not finished working within the Planning Commission that needs a little tweaking. But basically, you want me to tell you what they are? Or is it
No,
Mr. Kendrick got to read them? Or
why don't
what?
we let Mr. Kendrick read those, unless, what do y'all think?
I would appreciate just a
Yeah,
quick summary.
give us we'll call it a recap or a Cliff
Okay.
Note version.
Quick summary. First of all, fence used to not allow masonry, and we changed it to allow masonry because the reason behind this is that most of the old Spanish-style homes in Hollywood have the brick coming off the side of the house. It looks like stucco or whatever, and that's actually the front of a fence. And we wanted to allow that to continue to happen if somebody else is doing a house like that. The second one was property lines, and this is one that's involves corner lots having 2 fronts. And that's the way it has been for about 30 years, but it was recently changed. And the reason for that is so that somebody doesn't split a lot and turn the houses sideways on the corner, and therefore the guy that's number 2 is looking at their backyard. I made a real fast and dirty visual this afternoon if you'd like to see it. Brian, if you don't mind.
He does mind.
So he doesn't
No,
mind.
there we
All
go.
right.
Okay.
This right here is an example. That's Edgewood Boulevard where the E is, and R is Roseland. And that's the current condition. You have all those houses lined up nice and neat, all facing Edgewood. Now, if you show us number 2, please. All right, that's the way it would be if you split them and face 2 houses towards Edgewood Boulevard. And number 3, to the right, they overlapped. If you were to split them and face them the other direction, the third, what was the third house at the corner is now looking into the backyard of the new house. And so this guy, that guy right there, if he faced his house towards Roseland, now this other guy who's been there for 75 years is now looking into his backyard and accessory structures and play sets or anything like that. And it's just to try to keep the neighborhood looking like it was intended to look, because they originally all laid out facing Edgewood Boulevard. Now, this lot has split. It went through Planning Commission, it split, and I've already received the first building permit, and they will face Edgewood, so there's not a problem there. But he could have just as easily turned them around like I did in example 3, and then to me, has messed up the next man up the block. And that was my thinking on that. So, anyway, that's my rationale, be it good or bad. That's what it is. So, okay. Next one, the 8-foot, the half-story. And the only reason for defining that is for accessory structures, because accessory structures are 5 foot off the property line unless they're 2-story, and then they're 10 foot off the property line. So we had to define what a story is, because everybody's telling me they're building these houses or accessory structures and they're a story and a half. We don't have a definition of half a story. So we define that, and it only applies to accessory structures because we have a set height for houses based on the lot width. That's already set, so we don't need to deal with that. Okay. Setbacks. I want to make a visual on this one too, but I didn't do it. I just cranked that one out 10, 15 minutes ago. Setbacks. Currently, when you build a new house, you can be no closer to the front than any house within 250 feet in either direction, either side of the street. Now the problem with that is when you've got sloping lots, you'll notice that on one side, ridge would be a good example, the houses are real close to the property line. On the other side, they're set way back.
It's true.
So now if you're on the side that's set way back and you're allowed to come as close as the guy across the street, now you got somebody sitting way out in front. And that can happen real fast. So it only makes sense to, another example I had, use the same side of the street to keep some kind of continuity to the street, so that when you go down the street, there's not one sitting 50 feet back and the next one's 30 feet back. Okay, and then MPD was all set up originally when I came here. The way they used to do it was draw a straight line between the houses. That works real good unless you got a curve in the road. It doesn't work too good. So they changed it several years back, and they went with this either side of the street, and I'm finding that's not working, causing some problems. So there's a reason for that. Okay, thank you, Scott. We put in there you couldn't sit back any further than 10% of those around you. You can always ask for a variance, but let's assume all the houses are 50 feet from the street, then you couldn't be more than 55 feet back. Whereas we had somebody bring us, if y'all remember, about a month or two ago, a subdivision that had 2 houses sitting 40 feet back, and the other one was 100 foot back. We don't want that. Okay?
May I interrupt you just a second?
Sure.
So it can be 55 feet, but it could not be 45 feet.
That's
Is
right.
it variance either way, or just a variance
Oh,
back?
it's only towards the back. You can't come any,
Okay,
sorry,
good,
the way it's
good,
written,
good.
you can't come any closer, but you can't go any further back than 10% without a variance.
Great, thank
If
you.
terrain is the best thing there is, if terrain calls it, you need to come back, then we'd go to the BZA and ask for a variance. But we're trying not to have that example that we saw a few weeks back. Okay. Community shopping districts, adding tobacco shops. And 6 is taking them out of the other zonings. The reason for this is that tobacco and vape shops, we've had already shown to us an example of a vape shop that I don't really think fits our desires. And I'll talk about that at another time, but if you need to talk about it. But Scott and I have both visited this shop, and it's not what we would consider a regular tobacco. It's nothing like the cigar shop over in West Homewood, put it that way. Okay? That's the reason for that. All right. The last one is non-conforming uses of land and building. It used to be if something was vacant for a year, it lost its variances. And we would like to move that to 6 months. A year is really hard for us to track. But for instance, signs already have an issue where if you have bad information or it's vacant for 30 days, a non-conforming sign would have to come down. Same thing for the non-conforming business. And rather give them a year, that would be able to make a change in 6 months. Or come before us and ask before that time is up. So that's the rough idea, but Mr. Kendricks put it into proper words for us. And that was the layman's version.
Mr. Cook, any additions to that?
No, that's fine. Yeah,
Okay.
Frank and I work both on this, trying to get everything
Thank you,
worked
both
out.
of you, for your efforts on
And there's
this.
more coming, like you said.
There
No.
are some more coming, and like I said, I've had many calls about the corner lots, and we're putting it exactly the way it was written in 1986, putting it right back to that, and my example shows you why.
I understand. All right. Any questions?
I've already voted on this once, but I thought about it for a week. The corner lot, I absolutely agree with the intent. Of course, I've probably gotten a lot of the same phone calls you have. This is going to start throwing a lot of cases to the BZA.
Yes, sir.
That tend to rubber stamp these if it's someone just adding on a master bath or whatnot. We're not talking about subdivisions and reorientations so much. Could we preserve the intent by just taking how it's written now and adding a clause that in the event of a subdivision or reorientation of the structure, a variance is required?
Mr. Thames, I have struggled with that for weeks myself, is trying to figure out how to preserve the intent, just like in the Edgewood example. That guy came and got his building permit last week because he knew this was coming. Mm-hmm. The whole street's got 5 and 9 setbacks. I said, okay. I went over and measured it myself one day, and we put 5 and 9 setbacks with them being 9 feet off the street because you want most of your side off the street. And it worked out perfect. And I wish I knew how to put that into words that we could make that happen. And the two front issue, I also have a good example of how bad that can be, but I just hadn't figured out how to put it in the proper words to maintain it that you can do that without a variance.
Have we had an issue of, say, someone's not subdividing the lot, they're not reorienting the house to face the other street. Someone's just coming in and they're wanting to put an addition on their home. Encroaching is to what you would consider too far into the side?
No, sir, I've not had that issue. The issue I have had, as soon as that changed, the very first thing that happened was somebody built a giant tree house in the side yard, which is in front of the next door neighbors now. It's in West Homewood. And that about burned my phone up when that happened, because it's an accessory structure, mm-hmm. And there it sits in a tree house about 20 feet off the street.
Did they get a permit for that?
Oh, yeah. I didn't sign it. Just going to clear that up.
He said tree house, it is built around a tree.
Oh, I know exactly
Okay.
what it is, where it is.
Well, would you agree that that's
yeah, it's an eyesore.
It's an eyesore,
I didn't
and
realize that they had actually gotten a permit.
that's how they did it. Is when this ordinance changed. I mean, that day, that's when it went in.
So
And
we'll fix that.
Caused a lot of conversation around our office.
Well, I agree. Like I said, I agree with the intent. I'm just curious if a little additional wording couldn't accomplish the same thing without creating a lot of variance requests.
And I'm be very open to that if I could. I just have not been able to figure out how to do it.
Accessory structures, subdivisions, or reorientations require a variance.
Accessory structures, subdivisions, or reorientation would require a variance, and then leave it like it is with not two fronts. But okay. Mr. Kendrick's already written the ordinance. I'd like to defer to him to see how we might work that out. What's the best way to handle this?
I don't know if this would be a substantive change enough to kick it back to the Planning Commission, which I'd like to avoid.
Well,
again, Mr. Kendrick can.
I'm not sure I can answer that tonight.
that is kind of thrown out there, isn't it?
Let's ponder that.
More possible variances request, or would it help them not as many?
What I've got proposed is going to cause a lot of variance requests. I'm sure of that.
Well, let's ponder what Mr. Thames has offered, and we can always offer another ordinance or a
Okay.
more detailed
I
ordinance
absolutely-
after this one.
I agree with everything he's saying. I've been working on it myself. Just
I
can't
understand.
find the words.
Well, it sounds like we're one meeting away from maybe being able to solve this, so.
Okay.
You know, and it's not going to be tonight, but that's okay.
It's just, the reason for its importance is if it's not tonight, it needs to be soon. But we're having lot splits coming at us just quickly, daily.
We can do this soon.
So, okay.
We can. Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Thank you, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Cook. Any other questions? There being none, is there anyone else who would like to speak to this item? They'll get out of the way, I promise. If you would like to speak to it and come forward, we would ask you to sign in with your name and address so we'd have a record of your attendance. All right, I'm going to assume that means the answer is no, but what we're going to do is, for no other reason than what we just had a conversation about, we're going to leave this public hearing open and continue it, but we're going to go ahead and...
Mr. Limbaugh,
yes.
I gave my comments, but I don't really have any interest in delaying. If the council wants to vote on these changes tonight, I'm absolutely not going to stand in the way of that.
Well, let's do this. Let's have Mr. Kendrick read the ordinance, and we'll go from there. Sir?
It's an ordinance to amend Article 2 entitled Definitions to provide for new definitions for the following terms: fence, property lines, and story. To amend Section 1 entitled Front of subsection D entitled Setbacks of subsection 3 entitled Development Regulations of Section A entitled NPD Neighborhood Preservation District of Article 4 entitled District Uses. To amend subsection 2 entitled Permitted Uses of Section M entitled C3 Community Shopping District of Article 4 entitled District Uses. To amend Section 2 entitled Permitted Uses of Section Z entitled MXD Mixed Use District of Article 4 entitled District Uses, and to amend subsection 4 entitled Abandonment of Section E entitled Nonconforming Uses of Land and Buildings of Article 3 entitled General Regulations, all of Appendix A entitled Zoning Ordinances of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Homewood. Be ordained by the City Council as follows. Section 1, that the definitions section in Article 2 is amended to provide for new definitions for fence, property lines, and story. Section 2, that subsection 1 entitled Front of subsection D entitled Setbacks of subsection 3 entitled Development Regulations is amended to read as follows. Front shall be no closer to the front property line than any house on a lot where the lot is within 100 feet or less on either side of the subject property, on the same side of the street, or the nearest corner if less than 100 feet, or in no case shall be closer than 25 feet to the right-of-way. Houses are not to be set back any further than 10% of average setback within the same 100 feet thereof. Section 3 to subsection 2 entitled Permitted Uses of Section M entitled C3 Shopping District is amended to to redefine property vape shops to include the following definition: tobacco-vape and related product shops. Section 4, subsection 2 entitled Permitted Uses of Section Z entitled MXD is amended to delete get my cheat sheet to be easier. To delete, remove from that permitted uses tobacco shop and bridal shops. Section 5 is that subsection 4 entitled Abandonment of Section E entitled Nonconforming Uses is to be amended to provide as follows. Abandonment of nonconforming use which has been discontinued for a period of 6 months shall not be reestablished, and any further use shall be in conformity with the provisions of this ordinance. Section 6, that all provisions of the zoning ordinance will remain in full force and effect. Section 7, if any part of provision of the ordinance is declared to be unconstitutional or invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction, all other parts of provisions shall remain in full force and effect, not be affected by this amendment. Section 8, that this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its adoption by the City Council and approval by the mayor or is otherwise becoming law.
Thank you, Mr. Kendrick. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for unanimous consent.
So
Second.
By Ms. Smith, second by Mr. Ross. Roll call, please.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can I ask a question while we have that on the floor? And I apologize for not asking while you were up here. I was trying to look through my emails and find the email, but I can't find it. It seemed to me that we had gotten an email from some members of the BZA who had some questions about these changes. Did they have their questions answered? Are they comfortable with the, or am I remembering incorrectly?
No, sir, you're correct. We'd already gone through all this stuff and got it in progress, and they were asking why that we didn't run it through the VZA. Well, that's not the process. It goes through the Planning Commission. We also got the same complaint that the corner lot issue was going to cause a lot of variances, and I remember when it did. But right now, there's only 4 corner lots available for new construction in the city, and those have already been split under the old rules. They were split. They were split on those rules. I think they should stay there. But unless somebody tears down a house on a corner, it shouldn't become an issue. And like I said, it was written in 1986 and stood for 30 years, and it didn't seem to be a problem, so I don't really see why it's a problem now. I think whoever wrote the ordinance, and I'm pretty sure I know who it was, had already taken into consideration the example that I showed you a minute ago about not having one house and looking into the backyard of another out your front kitchen window or front living room window. Now, I've walked all over Edgewood just regular, and I've looked at all the corners to see how they work. Most of Edgewood is set up where a corner lot has an alley that divides it between the house on the other side that faces opposite street, or in some cases, they both face opposite streets. Depends on how the blocks are laid out. But my wife and I walk most evenings, and we pay a lot of attention to that because I've been trying to make it work right. But the example I showed you is something that we could get into real fast if they met our ordinance, and we'd have no way to stop it, and there we'd be. At least now we have a variance process to look into something. And if the words Mr. Thames picked out, we can write that in there and that works out right, that's even better. That gets rid of the variances, but we still don't let somebody turn a house sideways on a lot and mess up their neighbor. I'm looking out. I'm not trying to hurt the builders. I'm trying to protect the homeowners. That's it in a nutshell. It's not to hurt any builder or anybody splitting. I'm not worried about that. I want to protect the existing homeowners.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand your rationale for the corner lot. So you're of the opinion the principal concern the BZA folks had was with the corner lot change. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they're thinking it's going to fill the BZA up with cases, and at one time we had a lot of that. But we're all built out. Now, there may be people trying to split lots. We're going to change. The next change that we have is to change the way we calculate MPD for those splits, because we gave the prime example of how small they could get. And the whole reason MPD was created, from my understanding, was to prevent that from happening. And when I first came here almost 20 years ago, that was the example they gave me was that Salter Road had most of the houses sat in 2 and 3 50-foot lots. And they didn't want to see them all torn down and turned all into 50-foot lots.
Right.
The variance request the BZA is rightly worried about seeing a lot of is someone putting on a master bedroom addition or something like that into what's a side yard, but previously we considered it 2 front yards, so they needed a variance because of that front yard setback. I got one. It's not hard. I understand where the BZA is coming from, but I do think it's worth making this change, and then maybe we'll look at it at Planning Commission with that verbiage, and maybe we can come back and change it again.
We're following the same intent. We got the same intent in mind.
Yep.
It's just a matter about how we say it. And, we may need some help with how to word it.
Again, I was just trying to get my arms around what their objections were.
Yeah.
And so it's just this is the item out of the list that they have a big concern about because they think it'll generate a lot of variances. Is that a good summary of what you're saying? Okay.
Some of their concerns may be on the list that we get to present before you, too.
Okay. Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Quelton.
Briefly. I'm in favor of these changes, certainly, but to expand on what Mr. Higginbotham is saying, I think that the feeling of the BZA was, looking at Mr. Cole's letter, was that there used to be a joint Planning Commission and zoning board, or not board, I guess he called it a committee.
Subcommittee?
That met, yes.
Coalition.
That met relatively irregularly, but when these changes were needed to be reviewed, because all of these people in the Planning Commission and the BZA are volunteers, so when they perceive something that could send lots more variances their way, it may disincentivize those people to be volunteers with their time, unless they're super passionate about it. Not to mention, we have talented people on the Planning Commission and the BZA who have expertise in these areas that may not cross over. So BZA sees a lot more requests for zoning changes than the Planning Commission does. So I think there's some benefit to kind of reestablishing that commission that has maybe a couple of members of the BZA and a couple of members of the Planning Commission. Because even, I think he's still the chair, Mr. Higginbotham had mentioned he would prefer to see the BZA weigh in on this before it moved forward. But I've spoke to a good number of them, and I think they're on board with the changes. I'm basically saying I think we need to reestablish that subcommittee.
We don't have any problem with that at all. I mean, we'll certainly invite them to our next meeting. I mean, I welcome the input, because I'm not trying to do this, and neither is Scott. It was a group, and all these words that we put together came from others in that group. So it's not just me and Scott writing something. No, it was the Planning Commission subcommittee. Yeah,
right.
So certainly we will include them.
Again, Mr. Burgett, roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh.
Yes. So this will be ordinance 2710, and your chair would appreciate a motion and a second for adoption.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Thames, second from Mr. Gwaltney. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh.
Yes, so 2710 passes unanimously. I will again point out that we are encouraging additional conversations. There's nothing wrong with another ordinance, and we'll look at that. 030718, public hearing set for tonight for consideration of a sign variance at 828 Green Springs Highway. Megan Ellis, Greg Cobb, BEZ, report from Special Issues. Ms. Smith.
Yes, we met, actually, this was from the meeting of July 16th, so a while back, and the committee voted 4-0 to send this item back out to the full council without recommendation pending the public hearing tonight. And the motion was made by Mr. Higginbotham and seconded by Mr. Gwaltney.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. We will open this public hearing and welcome comments, starting with Mr. Cobb.
Okay, I believe, yes, Brian's got the visual here. This is the one sign is oversized right there, and then there's those others are attached. So what the variance request is for one sign oversized and additional attached signs, that they do meet our size ordinance. No, that one doesn't. That one's 63. There's two of them oversized. Okay.
Pylon is existing.
That's right. The pylon is existing. That's what it is. It's popping the plastic out. That's right. That doesn't require a variance. So there's one oversized sign, that one right there of the Colonel, and then the KFC letters on the side of the building.
All right, and you are, ma'am, for the, okay, Miss Ellis. So anything you'd like to add to that? Okay.
And can you remind me, since it's been a while, the signs, the letters, those are illuminated, am I correct? Those are backlit?
The tower is not, the one with the Colonel's face.
Right, but the channel,
Yes,
the
channel
letters on the side. Okay.
All right, good. Any other questions, council?
Are we just replacing signs with the new logo, or we're adding, or are we replacing what's already existing?
The tower sign's going to be larger than.
Into the microphone, please, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Over here.
I'm sorry.
We need a
The tower
record.
sign is actually replacing another tower sign, but they are, when they're redoing the building, so they're taking away, there's this tip part that's on the top of the tower that's ugly. They're taking that off, and they're clearing that and making that tower sign. The sign is actually like aluminum panels, several aluminum panels, the white and red, and they're putting the Colonel in vinyl graphics over that. So in my opinion, the sign is actually just the vinyl graphics part, and it's just got the color in the background, kind of bring it out. But so the tower sign is oversized, but if you just counted the vinyl, it wouldn't be.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this matter? If there is not, we will close this public hearing. Any comments from the council?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'd preface my comments by saying I love Kentucky Fried Chicken. I think by looking at me, that doesn't take much of an imagination to see that I'm the sort of person that would love Kentucky Fried Chicken. As members of council know, I struggle greatly with these sign variances. I'm having a really difficult time, especially with the signs on the side of this building. I'm not sure what hardship is represented here. I feel relatively confident that once the customers get into the parking lot, they'll know where they are and they won't need KFC on the side to help them understand their orientation. I just think it's too much. I'm confused about why that even needs to happen on this building. So I just simply can't support it, but I do want to say I'm glad KFC's here, and I do enjoy the fried chicken, but I just can't vote for this variance tonight.
Well, I would offer the opinion, and yes, I've been there and bought products and carried them home. I would offer the opinion that the signage is pretty dated looking, and for any business, I think that's a factor. Now, that's point counterpoint. That's okay. Mr. Thames?
I'm sorry, Mr. Cobb. Can you recap again the variance request for me?
The kernel on the front is oversized, so that's a size variance, and the two KFCs stuck to the building are additional signs. You're allowed one sign per business attached, and that would be the kernel, that one, that's
So
oversized.
two attached and an oversized.
He's oversized, yes, sir. 50 square feet is what's allowed, and the two KFCs are just additional attached signs that are not oversized.
Did you say there were two oversized though?
One.
But it's oversized.
Would the applicant be willing to entertain maybe a proffer in regards to the pole sign? It's I think you're currently planning to reface it.
Yes.
You think the colonel would be amenable to maybe a monument sign in place of a pole sign?
But the face replacement's on the pylon's not.
I understand.
It's not in.
Yeah.
That's okay, right?
Well, technically, yes. You can change out the signage on an existing pole sign, but of course they're also requesting two additional attached signs and a size variance for the one attached sign you're typically allowed.
Yes.
Just wondering if maybe they'd be willing to proffer that pole sign becoming a monument sign.
Maybe. I can talk to them about it.
Okay.
Because I'm a subcontractor, so
Sure.
I actually go through another sign company
Sure.
that talks to KFC. So.
Sure. We understand.
I would, just personally, that would go a long way towards me helping me make my decision.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Is that a motion, Mr. Thames?
No. If we vote on it tonight, I think I know how I would vote without knowing the answer to the potential proffer of a monument sign. Maybe.
I mean, it can always be what the council will approve,
That's,
but.
sir, that's fine. That's true.
We could carry it over.
All right, let's do this. We've already closed the public hearing, so let's, why don't you pursue some information there, and we'll carry this over, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, 090718, request for consideration to form a Highway 280 Public Road Cooperative District, requested by Jennifer Andrus, report from Finance. Who's doing those? Ms. Smith?
The committee voted the committee met last week and voted 5-0 to recommend approval of creating the cooperative. Motion was made by by myself, actually, and seconded by Council Wright. And again, that was 5-0 for approval of creating the 280 cooperative.
Great. So we have a motion from Finance. Is there any further discussion? There being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous, and that is 18106, and that is approved. 260618, request to address flooding issues at 212 Bonita Drive, requested by Robert Robertson. Report from Public Works. Mr. Wright.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The Public Works Committee met and voted 5-0 to send back to the full council without a recommendation pending contract review. The motion was made by Councilor McCluskey and seconded by Councilor Wyatt.
All right. Do we have any further information, Mr. Cobb?
Yes, sir. I contacted Dr. Scholl, Walter Scholl. I'm going to find it in a minute. I dropped all my papers. He had given me a proposal last Monday to do a lot of hydraulic work, and this goes to the next. Boy, I scrambled in. Next menu item.
Right. Yes, sir.
I've been going to KFC too much. The next agenda item also is Lancaster and Huntington. And so I talked to Dr. Scholl about doing some drainage study for some work over there and request prices as of I just got the proposal on Monday and asked him to give us some prices. I wanted to move forward as fast as I could if we could afford it. His first reply to me was a total of $27,380. And we don't have but about $26,000 in our engineering budget, which would kill our engineering budget. So we either need to, if you want to move forward to that, come up with some more money from another line item, or negotiate with Mr. Scholl to see if we can reduce that amount. That's where I am tonight. I was really hoping that it was going to be something that we could do quickly because it is urgent.
Is the 27,000?
380.
I'm sorry, what?
380. 27,000.
27,380. Does that cover 2606 and 010718 both?
Yes, sir.
That's
it covers both of them.
Combination of both.
Yes, sir.
Even though we must vote on them separately.
No, sir, the contract has both in there.
Yes, sir.
And it was discussed and recommended at the committee, as I understood it, that both would be recommended subject to the contract. So the resolution that I sent you covers both 2706 and 10718, and we certainly can separate that.
Okay.
But as drafted, that's the way it was drafted based on the committee.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Both of these came to us at the same time, and they basically both happened in the same situations. I
understand.
But whatever the council's pleasure is there, we don't have it in our engineering budget. We're short a couple $1,000, and that would be all of our budget. Like I said, we got the option of negotiating it down or coming up with some other funds.
But we are 7 weeks away from the end of the fiscal
right,
year.
we're almost into the new year. So
I'm gonna ask those members of the Finance Committee, what's your recommendation?
Well, I think initially, trying to negotiate with Mr. Scholl would be a good idea, because if he'll agree to go down a little bit, it seems like we avoid the problem altogether. But I mean, I think it's something that we've got to fix. So if we need to,
I would ask Mr. Scholl to tell me if there's any one piece of this study and work he could do that would be the least effective. I mean, what could be easily, is there one piece that could be easily eliminated, some
Sure.
part of it that we could eliminate, and see what that has to say. But I do see the urgency in this with the rains. This has been an unusual year for us, but some of this has been ongoing problems that's happened before. So whatever's the most expedient way to do it.
Mr. President.
What's the council's motion? Yes, Mr. Wright.
Could we, Mr. Cobb, would you be acceptable to, if we approved it up to a level of your amount of funding I mean, are you comfortable with that, or do you?
I would be comfortable with that. At least I'm moving. I mean, I don't know the exact number, as Robert has to tell me, it's about 26,000 we've got in there, but I don't know the exact number because I can't get in that system anymore. But if you would say, if you would approve it up to the limits of available funds, and I can negotiate to that, I would like to move forward quickly, and if I fail to negotiate to that number,
then we'll come back.
Then we'll come back next meeting and try it again.
And you're okay with going ahead and exhausting that amount at this juncture?
You know, my crystal ball is so real fuzzy, I don't know what the next thing's gonna come up on us. We try to do things like, I've got to see the mayor about some creek wall preventive stuff we want to do, and I always save it to the end of the fiscal year in case I have that other emergency. We try not to spend our funds until the latter part of the year unless it's absolutely necessary.
Okay. We understand. Mr. Gwaltney, question?
Maybe I missed it. What's the deliverable from Walter Scholl? Is it plans and a solution, or?
No, he's never guaranteed a solution.
Wait a minute.
What it says is that preliminary evaluation, hydrological analysis, and recommendation to address the drainage problem.
Right.
It specifically excludes design work, study of additional options, and cost estimates for remediation.
Yeah.
All right, so any further discussion? If not, do we have a motion? I'm looking at you, Mr. Wright.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine. I mean, I think what we're doing here is we're getting, and Craig, elaborate on this if you will, we are getting this much needed information that we are lacking in this area with regard to the flooding problems that are occurring.
Yes, sir.
We have a gap of information we don't have and we don't know. And for this figure up to your budget limits will provide that information to us. Doesn't mean it doesn't mean the information is going to fix it. It's going to give us the knowledge we need to know how to fix it. I assume that is correct. Is that right, Greg?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The knowledge to fix it might be we lay bigger pipe for half a mile down the road, which would not be feasible. But unless we had some windfall of money that I'm not aware of. But
because right now we are without that understanding.
Right. And flooding is the biggest engineering problem there is, because we might can move it off of this block only to pile it up on the next block. Because the water volume has to be somewhere. So that's why you look at somebody like Walter Scholl. They probably have more information on the flooding in this area than any other. They actually work with FEMA on Griffin Creek, on the FEMA maps. So they have the data.
One question, Mr. Limbaugh. Is Mr. Scholl, is he who you would typically go to for design, as far as engineering designs for whatever fix he recommends?
For, if it's involving our waterways, yes, sir.
Well, not that I'm looking to spend more money, but if we're going to go back to the same guy to engineer whatever recommendations he comes up with, is there any money to be saved to go ahead and ask for those, to get a little more than just
those specs, those
a couple
drawings.
of recs and not any kind of actual design or something that can make us, help us implement a fix?
You mean a larger contract with
Sure.
design?
If we're going to go back to him anyways.
Well, until he does a study, we're not going to know what that's going to be. I don't think it would be any, I don't know if there'd be any cost savings. I can certainly ask him that.
Please do.
If it's more cost effective to do it that way. If there's no cost savings, then it wouldn't matter. But if it's more cost effective, then certainly.
It's worthy of a question.
If, in fact, and we need to add this to the agenda, if we could bring Dr. Scholl to committee next week. I mean, if that'll help you, if I want to put you at ease, what I want to do. I want to get something done, but I want everybody to be comfortable with it, whatever it is we do.
I mean, I think that's fine, but I still think we need to vote on accelerating the process if we can.
Let's try and accelerate it, and then if there's questions to be had, we'll bring him in
Absolutely.
Monday night.
Mr. Wright, your motion is?
Yes, so it would be my motion to, and I guess, and we need to clarify this, Mr. President, there's 260618 and 010718
Yes,
together.
for one resolution,
For
yes.
one resolution, for utilization of the available resources we have with the engineering department budget. Is that
Yes, sir.
Engineering department budget.
What's in our budget right now?
To address the flooding issues at 212 Bonita Drive, Lancaster, and Huntington as designated under 260618 and 010718.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second from Ms. Andrus. Any further discussion? If there is not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that is 10-0. 10-07-18, request to work in the city right-of-way to remove and replace a section of sidewalk to replace deteriorated water supply line in front of Trustmark National Bank, which is 1808 29th Avenue South, requested by Wyatt Pugh, Corey Varden, and Reeves Construction Company. Report from Public Works, Mr. Wright.
Excuse me.
Was this in Public Works?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
The committee met and voted 5-0 to recommend approval of a replacement tree. The motion was made by Councilor Gwaltney and seconded by Councilor McCluskey.
All right, so we have a motion from Public Works. Is there anything else to discuss with this, or questions, concerns? If there is not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's Resolution 18108. Next, 110718, request for consideration for repairs to the curb and sidewalk at 1914 28th Avenue South, requested by Mr. Tommy Holcomb and Greg Cobb with BEZ. We'll start with a report from Public Works.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The committee met and voted 5-0 to recommend approval for a cost to the city of $13,766 and a cost to the homeowner of $38,114 for these repairs. The motion was made by Councilor Gwaltney and seconded by Councilor Wyatt.
All right, so we have a motion from Public Works. Any additional comments, Mr. Cobb or Mr. Holcomb, either one?
No,
Questions of them?
I was
See,
gonna say Mr.
y'all
Holcomb
did
gave
such a
up.
good job when you brought it to committee that
Okay.
no one seems to have any questions.
Good.
That's a good thing. So therefore, all in favor of this resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that was enthusiastic and unanimous. That's Resolution 18109. Thank you, Mr.
Let me have
Holcomb.
one copy.
Sorry you had to wait. 200518, request to address traffic concerns on Drake Street behind Piggly Wiggly, requested by David Weaver and Walter Jones. Report from Public Safety, Mr. McCluskey.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee met and voted 5-0 to recommend approval of a right turn only sign and the addition of a crosswalk. The motion was made by Councilor Andrus and seconded by Councilor Thames.
Thank you. First reading, Mr. Kendrick.
Yes, sir, that ordinance also, as I understood it, included a pedestrian crosswalk. Okay. Ordinance to provide for the installation of a pedestrian crosswalk across Drake Street and the adjacent driveway entrance at the vicinity of the intersection of Drake Street with Oxmoor Road, and to further regulate traffic in the city of Homewood on along Drake Street and to provide penalties for the violation thereof. Section 1, that the chief of police shall be directed to install a pedestrian crosswalk across Drake Street and the adjacent drive entrance at the intersection of Drake with Oxmoor Road. Section 2, that all drivers of motor vehicles defined by the Highway Code shall yield to pedestrian traffic located within the crosswalk as defined above. Section 3, be unlawful for any person, firm, or corporation to operate a motor vehicle traveling on along Drake Street in the city to make a left-hand turn onto Oxmoor Road from Drake Street at the intersection of Drake Street with Oxmoor Road. Section 4, the chief of police is authorized and directed to direct and install at the intersection of Drake Street with Oxmoor Road no left-hand turn or no right or right turn only signs pursuant to the Section 3 above. Section 5, that person found guilty of violation of this ordinance shall be punished as provided by Section 1-A of the Code of Ordinances. Section 6, that all parts of ordinances contrary to these provisions are repealed. Section 7, any part of provision of ordinance declared to be unconstitutional or invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction should not affect any other parts or provision of the ordinance. Section 8, the ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its adoption by the city council or approval by the mayor or otherwise becoming law.
Thank you, Mr. Kendrick. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for unanimous consent.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. McCluskey, second from Ms. Smith. All right. Roll call, please, sir.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton? Yes. Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes, so this will be ordinance 2711. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for adoption.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. McCluskey, second from Mr. Thames. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey? Mr. Wolverton, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes, so 2711 passes unanimously, and we move forward. 080418, request for consideration of reduction of speed humps on Berry Road, requested by Mr. McCluskey. We'll start with a report from Public Safety, Mr. McCluskey. And then
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee met and voted 5-0 to recommend approval of adding the speed bumps, humps, whatever you want to call them, back as per the original ordinance. The motion was made by Councilor Thames, seconded by Councilor Andrus.
All right, thank you. Because this is a return to an original ordinance, the chair would recommend that someone make a motion for dropping this particular item. I'm sorry, Mr. White, and the second was Mr. Gwaltney. All in favor?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
Before you do that, can I make just one comment on the process?
Sure.
A positive comment on the process.
Oh, good.
Well, you don't have to act that surprised, Mr. Chairman.
That's a good thing.
Well, I did not agree
Take
with
it at face value.
Well, I did not agree with the conclusion that was reached. I did want to extend my thanks to Councilor McCluskey for the way he has handled this process. I think he's done it in a very orderly and open manner, and I appreciate that he took the time to go through and look at this issue very closely.
Well said. Thank you. All right. All in favor of the drop signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, so that is 9-1. Okay?
Who opposed, please?
I'm sorry, Mr. Higginbotham. All right, 140718, request for consideration of an ABC 020 restaurant retail liquor for Ash Restaurant LLC, doing business as Ash Restaurant, located at 703 and 705 Oak Grove Road, requested by Robert Burgett, our acting city clerk. Report from Public Safety, Mr. McCluskey.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee met, and after receiving letters of no objections from both the fire and police departments, the committee voted 5-0 to recommend having no objection to the issuance of the license. The motion was made by Councilor Thames and seconded by Councilor Andrus.
All right, thank you. Public Safety has made the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And that is 10-0, and they will enjoy selling alcohol.
Yes,
as
and
opposed
I have to say that I think that more than half of West Homewood would second that as well, because I've gotten multiple phone calls and emails over the past week.
You can only bring your own bottle so long.
That's right.
I understand.
Party Town USA in West Homewood. So.
All right. 030118, request for consideration for tree planting, requested by Brett Thames. Report from P&D, Mr. Thames.
Yes, sir. The committee met and pulled this item off the table. It had been put there while we were waiting for certain people to join the city, Mr. Hughes being one. Mr. Hughes and Amy Milam with the Environmental Commission presented a budget for the upcoming year, as well as suggested locations for tree plantings. They requested that we carry forward the $14,500 that is currently in the tree planting line item, adding another $35,500, bringing the total to $50,000 for the 18-19 budget. The committee voted 3-0 to send that out to council with a recommendation to ask the mayor to include it in his proposed budget.
All right, thank you, sir. My understanding, Mayor, is that this is a part of your proposed budget for 18-19. Is that correct? Correct. Okay, good. So if that's the case, I think we can drop this and then tackle it in budget hearings. Did that communicate well? So it will still be addressed, but my recommendation would be, well, we can carry this over. What do y'all think?
I think it was just going to be a request to ask the mayor to include it in his proposed budget. It sounds like he has, which is fantastic to hear. So I say we go ahead and vote to support it. And that'd be a motion from me.
Okay, motion for Mr. Thames, second for Mr. Higginbotham. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that is unanimous. And that will be, will that be a resolution, Mr. Kendrick?
No, sir.
Okay, then that's just a positive vote. Committee referral agenda with the additions. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for approval.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Higginbotham, second from Ms. Andrus. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. All right, other new business. 050818, request to set a public hearing and referral to Special Issues Committee for consideration for a variance to the sign fence ordinance at 300 Mecca Avenue, requested by Paul Truesdale. Did I pronounce that correct? Close enough. Greg Cobb with BEZ, and that public hearing will be set for August 27th, 2018 at 6 p.m. 060818, request to set a public hearing and referral to Special Issues Committee for consideration for a variance to the sign ordinance at 201 Green Springs Highway, requested by Greg Cobb, and we will also set this public hearing for August 27th, 2018 at 6 p.m. 070818, request to set a public hearing and referral to the Special Issues Committee for consideration for a variance to the sign ordinance at 215 Green Springs Highway, requested by Greg Cobb and BZ. And 070818 will be set for August 27th, 2018 at 6 p.m. All right, 080818, request to set a public hearing and referral to the Special Issues Committee for consideration for a variance to the sign ordinance at 308 Oxmoor Road, requested by Marco Perez, Greg Cobb, BEZ, and we will also set that public hearing for August 27th, 2018 at 6 p.m. Bring your pillows. 090818, request to set a public hearing and referral to Special Issues Committee for consideration for a variance to the sign ordinance at 428 Green Springs Highway, requested by Greg Cobb and BEZ, and we will also set that public hearing for August 27th, 2018 at 6 p.m. 100818, request to set a public hearing and referral to the Planning and Development Committee for considerations of changes to minimum side building setbacks, requested by Andy Gwaltney and Britt Thames. I would like to continue this.
We can drop it.
Do you want to drop it?
Yeah, it'll be set once something comes back from the Planning Commission.
Great. So your motion is to drop it?
Yep.
Who is seconding your motion? Mr. Gwaltney. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And it really is a timing issue for those who might be concerned. Good. 110818, request to set public hearing and referral to Planning and Development Committee for consideration of changes to structure, ground coverage, impermeable services, again requested by Mr. Gwaltney and Mr. Thames. What are we doing with that one, Mr. Thames?
I'm following his logic now.
Go ahead. So we were discussing it. We were under the assumption we were dropping the request for a public hearing, not the item. Because the item's already on, we've already committed to it on the consent agenda, or referral agenda, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it's going to P&D.
Okay, well, I
It's going to
misunderstood.
P&D.
I'm sorry. Well, let's back up then.
I'm sorry, I was not clear. We would like it to be referred to P&D, which we adopted earlier. There's no reason to set a public hearing until it comes back from Planning Commission.
I think, Mr. President, I think you're covered for that.
Okay, okay, good. So are you making the same request for 110818?
Yes, sir.
And are you also seconding it, Mr. Gwaltney? Okay, good. So does everyone fully understand the request? I do. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
And that was a motion to drop.
Yes.
Okay.
To drop the public hearing only.
I understood, I just didn't hear it, that's all.
Excuse me. All right, 120818, request to set a public hearing to consider declaring the property located at 1575 Valley View Circle a public nuisance due to a violation of ordinances 1910 and 1750 excessive growth, requested by Scott Cook, our Code Enforcement Police Department. We will also set this public hearing for August the 27th at 6 p.m. All right, 130818, request to set a public hearing to consider declaring the property located at 218 Summit Parkway a public nuisance due to a violation of ordinances 1910 and 1750 excessive growth. Also from Mr. Cook, public hearing is set for August 27th at 6 p.m. 140818, request to set a public hearing to declare the property located at 1117 Hardwick Lane a public nuisance due to violation of ordinances 1910 and 1750 excessive growth. And that is from Mr. Cook also, and that will be set for August 27th at 6 p.m. also. Lastly, 150818, request for consideration of approval of vouchers for the period of July 23rd through August 12th, 2018, requested by City Treasurer and Finance Committee. Ms. Smith.
Yes, since Mr. Jones is currently enjoying his time in Italy, I had the pleasure of taking his turn looking at vouchers for a 3-week period. But Mr. Burgett had it very organized and answered all my questions. And I would request that we move that we approve those vouchers to be paid.
So we have a motion from Ms. Smith and a second from Mr. Higginbotham. And all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is Resolution 110, Mr. Kinder?
Yes, sir, I think so.
Good. That's what I thought. So we come to the end of our agenda, and we reach the time when the floor is yours, Mayor. Thank you, sir. With that, Mr. Gwaltney.
Just one thing to mention tonight. Wanted to congratulate the library and their on their event this weekend. The library board back to school, not back to school bash. The I'm sorry, my thoughts are all over the place. The block party. It raised a lot of money. They raised $35,000 for the library, and unfortunately I was not able to attend, but for those of you that did attend, thank you very much for being there. I heard a good time was had by all.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Thames, P&D.
Is Mr. Jones in here? Does that mean 5 o'clock is up for grabs? Or
No.
No,
we're still protecting 5 o'clock.
How long will you need? I think there was just one on referral.
But there was a lot of carryover from.
There were a lot of carryovers. Mr. Burgett, do we have any, do you know how if we're going to be able to address the time, was it the time clocks and the changes to the fiscal policy, or are we going to probably carry that over again?
And the business license ordinance.
Business license ordinance, yes.
We have some small items we can address with the business license ordinance. Again, I would carry over the fiscal policy and the time clocks. The time clocks, we are in slotted, but we're just waiting for them to contact
Okay.
us, and it's going to be several months for them to physically start the process.
Okay. Then I bet 30 minutes will probably be enough.
Okay. I will set P&D for 5:30. The block party was fun. So good job for the library and the library board. Thank you, Mayor, for planning to have the tree money proposed in your budget. That's exciting. And that is it.
All right, how long are you going to need?
I'm sorry, just 15 minutes.
Okay, good. Mr. Higginbotham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. just echo what's already been said about the block party. Homewood Library Foundation and all the folks who organized it just did a fantastic job. It was an incredible event, biggest one they've had. Incredible attendance. The food was out of the world, just out of this world. It was really the best one they've done so far. So I commend them for the work I know had to go into making that a reality. I think that's all that I really haven't. I'll let you talk about the town hall meeting if you want. Thanks.
Mr. Wolverton? A couple things. It was mentioned a second ago, accidentally, but the back to school bash is going to be August 25th, 4:30 to 8:30 at Patriot Park. So that will be a fun evening. Hopefully, anybody that wants to can come out. Got a lot of good street vendors. They did a lot of positive things back in the spring to kind of keep kids on the grass and out of the street. And the street's closed, but it'll be a great event. Just want to welcome Ash to the neighborhood. They opened officially last Wednesday. If you haven't been there, feel free to drop in. Now they're going to be serving alcohol very soon. But
Perhaps
they're great
even
without
tonight.
that. It's not necessary. And then we have a town hall meeting August 23rd, 6:30 at Homewood Church of Christ. And it's going to be a little bit different. We'll kind of share anything that's really new, but we have a group from Red Mountain coming to kind of speak, Red Mountain Park to kind of speak as well. So
What time?
6:30.
Good. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Mr. McCluskey, Public Safety at 5:45.
Yes, public safety at 5:45.
How long do you need?
If I could have 30 minutes, I think that
Okay.
would be good. And that's all for tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
Block party was a really, really good time. Very, very pleased for the library for the turnout and all the money that I hope they made from all the tickets they sold. Special issues, you said 30 minutes? So I'll set special issues for 6:15.
And you need how much time? 30?
I have like 6 items. So yeah, 30 minutes. Sorry, Peter.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. White?
Just a reminder that Jersey Night is this Friday. It'll be at Sanford this year at 6 o'clock. Unfortunately, the NCAA ruled out the fireworks for reasons that don't make any sense whatsoever. But at any rate, there won't be fireworks, as I said a couple weeks ago. But it will still be a great time, and the kids are still going to get to be on the big screen and the whole deal. So there will be food trucks there, and the festivities will start at 6.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Andrews?
Again, a great time at the block party. It was a great event. That they sold the most pre-sales. They had the most corporate sales I've ever had. The crowd was huge. The food was great. The beautification board is meeting tomorrow night at 6 here at City Hall. Hope everyone had a good start to the school season. Everybody's off and running at the high school and the middle school. I hope all the elementary schools are doing well as well. I hear they look great. I hear all the construction that looks great. There's been a couple of really weird events that the HPD has had to deal with, and it's just unbelievable what those guys and gals are amazing. And I don't know if anyone saw the video of them flying down 3rd Avenue North downtown after the Corvette. It's just, I can't believe that how much they deal with, and we are so lucky that we have them in our city. And again, I'm going to tell you this until September 29th, but put September 29th on your calendars, and we're going to be selling T-shirts for fundraising for the bridge.
Thank you.
That's it.
Mr. Wright?
Yes, let me follow up on the police. Had a momentous night last night in our neighborhood, and it was most reassuring to see the response time and frankly the good police work that was on display last night, with routine patrolling that did end up into a chase, and fortunately or unfortunately it came down my street, and unfortunately it did wake me up, but but it was really most reassuring. It was we were watching it, and it was just impressive display of our police force doing all they can to protect us and to take care of some issues that took place last night. And frankly, we had the fire department came through late at night to do what they had to do as part of the process. And anyhow, I just want to echo what Jennifer said. And you know, when it comes down your own block and you have that you know, law enforcement support, it's most reassuring. So hats off to them. I'm sorry that I know we do have representatives from police here, but to Chief Ross, and send him an email, and thanks to JJ to help our neighborhood monitor and be informed today about what happened. And with that, I will go to my usual spot for a committee meeting at the end of the cycle. And it was a glorious moment in the sun. And depending on how everyone behaves, it'll either be 15 or 30 minutes. We'll see. So I do have that control at the end. So thank you, Mr. President.
6:45.
Yes,
Very
6:45.
good. All right.
Thank you.
With that, we will stand adjourned. Thank you very much.